and I've told Randy this a million times, I can't believe how it doesn't matter what we're teaching. If we have two different classes on Sunday and Wednesday, at some point in time they're going to go just like this and merge. And merge not just over the course of the class, but merge in the week that we're studying it. So it's pretty important. Yes?
Did you say that after the fall?
Yes.
There was no need for that because they hadn't known the difference?
Listen, when God created, if you look at the general creation of man and woman that's in Genesis chapter 1, what does God give mankind, Adam and Eve? Dominion. Is that shared or is it not? Yes, it's shared. There's no difference at that point, I don't think. Now listen, again, if you go online, you're going to see people who are, I think, of a, well, I won't characterize them. But they want to have man being in a position of dominion from the beginning. And I don't see that. In fact, generally when I'm teaching my pre-marriage counseling, where was woman taken from? Give me the area of the man that it was taken from. From his side. And I always make the point, not taken from his head, which would seem to make her a leader, not taken from his foot, that she should be a slave or under him, but from the side so that they would be companions. And I really think that's the way it was. Now, again, I'm going to explain that on Wednesday night, or if you want to Zoom it on Thursday. Because we're right here. We're getting ready to go into the curses of Genesis chapter 3 on Wednesday night. That's the question we're going to be dealing with. So we'll curse on Satan, the curse on woman, and the curse on man, obviously in reverse order. All right, so that's enough for me plugging that midweek class. So why then, since we know that God is the one who set these boundaries, why is it important to know that? If we're in the woods right now, I'd be hearing crickets. Yes, Mike.
It goes to everybody wanting to find where the fence is. Instead of having people go out and search and do things and, I can't go there, I can't go there. If I have some idea of where I can't go,
right.
I'm not going to put those.
So it's good to know the boundaries. Yeah. Yes, Jeremiah.
It could be that to keep us from trying to decide which one we should follow.
Okay. Yeah, there's clarity there. And we're going to get into this in verse 7 of this text. But what does it say about the woman compared to the man? In verse 7 of 1 Peter 3. She's weaker. She's weaker. So, in the world of the jungle, who gets to have their way? The stronger one does. So I think it's important to know that God is the one who set these boundaries, and I'm kind of probably getting ahead of myself, but it wasn't man who decided that. And man says, well, I'm going to decide this because I'm bigger and stronger than you. And so I get to have my way. I mean, that takes me right back to my childhood with my older brother. He was stronger than me. Well, and he was bigger than me for a while. Okay. I caught him and passed him. But why this is important to know, I think, is because God's fixing a problem here in Genesis 3. And he said there, and somebody go ahead and read Genesis 3:16 for me. Who's got it? Okay, Irene. What translation are you reading for, so I can know?
The Holman Bible.
Okay.
Christian.
Okay, and then Jonathan, you can read right after her. Okay, go ahead.
He said to the woman, I will intensify your labor pains. You will bear children in anguish. Your desire will be for your husband, yet he will rule over you.
Okay, and go ahead and read, Jonathan.
To the woman he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you.
Okay. All right, so on the surface, except for the pain in childbirth, the second part, does that sound like a curse to you? Your desire will be for your husband? Oh, and it doesn't. And so let me say the desire here has nothing to do with the sexual nature, that she's going to desire him. Nor is it talking about her desire to be submissive. And it's not talking about desiring the husband's natural sense of protection of her. That she, again, because she's weaker, she has that ability. Those things, the sexual desire, the being submissive, the husband's natural protection, those are attitudes that are had in a spirit-governed marriage. Those are naturally there, I think. Because you have protection, provision, and leadership, and that's not a curse, that's the cure. Submission is not the curse, it is the cure of the problem. So, the word translated desire in chapter 3 and verse 16 is only found one other place in the whole Bible. And maybe I should just say in the Pentateuch for sure. And that is Genesis chapter 4, the next chapter over, and verses 6 and 7. So somebody read that for me. Genesis 4, 6 and 7. Okay, go ahead.
Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it.
Okay. So Cain has found out that his offering wasn't acceptable. He's all upset about that. And God says, if you'll do, he doesn't say it in these words, but if you did what I asked you to do, which is what Abel did, because Hebrews 11 says that he offered his sacrifice by faith, and faith comes by hearing God's word. And because God is not a respecter of persons, what Abel heard, Cain heard. He got the same instruction. But he chose to do something else. And so the last verse there in that text, Genesis chapter 4 and verse 16, says, let me go back over there. Or verse 7, I'm sorry. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. Who's the it there? Sin desires, same word as you see in Genesis 3, desires to have you. Its desire was for Cain. But Cain was going to have to do what? Rule over that. So what you have here is this word desire is teshuka in Hebrew. It's T-S-H, if you're wanting to write this down, T-S-H-U-W-Q-A-H. You can see why I have such a great time pronouncing these words. And it means desire, eager, or turning the will for. And what is saying here, that sin is the thing that has the desire. Sin wants Cain. Wants to own him, wants to control him, wants to dominate him. And in this particular case, in Genesis chapter 3, it's the woman who's crouching at the door, wanting the control, wanting the dominion over her husband. Wants to dominate. And husbands can't allow that to happen. It's the same language here. The woman wants independence. She wants dominance. And she wants to have her will and her way. And she wants it as badly as sin wanted Cain. And the man's part, and listen, I need to really emphasize this. The man's part in this curse is he has to rule over her. I can see Adam in a sense, because the word here for rule is mashal. It means to be installed in an authoritative position. Not to take it, not to assume it, but somebody else is putting you into it. And so man was forced into this role of being over his wife. To have the rule over it, placed there by God. As a response to the woman's sinful tendency of wanting to be dominant. So that's why I look at this and I say, well, that wasn't intended at the beginning. When God created them, that wasn't the intention. They were a team. She again was taken from his side. Chapter 1 and verse 28, God gave them authority over the creation. And listen again, not everybody agrees. So sin sets up this collision of wills and created this environment in the marriage where you have today in our society, and maybe I guess it's still there. I'm going to be using terms that you probably haven't heard for 40 years. But women's lib on one side and male chauvinism on the other. Where the males are demanding their leadership role. And the women are saying, we don't have anything to do with that. All of that doesn't change the fact that marriage is to be one man for one woman for life. And that's God's plan. And so this idea of being in submission didn't come from the mind of a man. In fact, he was, looks like from Genesis 3, he was forced into that role. Any questions or comments? Did that just kind of change your whole perspective? It does mine. Again, we'll probably talk a lot about that Wednesday and Thursday. All right. Well, that went really well. I was kind of expecting some questions about that. So either I explained it really well, or you are still in the muddy water. So, question 4 then. What is the key word for wives in this section of verses 1 through 6? Jeremiah?
Did you answer the second part of 3?
Yes, the second part of 3 is why it's important to know is that God is the one that set those boundaries, and why he set it that way. Yeah. Men didn't set it, God did, and he set it as a result of the sin that had entered into the world. Okay, so what's the key word for wives? Let me put it this way. What's the word most wives, especially worldly ones, hate that's in this text? Submission. Submission. And that's hupotasso. It's hupotasso. And it means to submit self. There's several voices in Greek, and this is the middle voice. And the middle voice is when you act on yourself. You're doing something to yourself. When babies are take a bath, who gives it to them? Somebody else. They're acted upon by the parent. When you take a bath, at least in your middle able years, who does that? You do it yourself. Now, when you get older, maybe somebody else is going to have to bathe you again, but right? When you talk about taking a bath or getting a bath or washing yourself, you're talking about you doing it to yourself. And that's what this is. This is a middle voice, the wife is placing herself in submission under her husband. You saw that in chapter 2 and at verse 13, where he says, submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to human authority. Who's doing that? Who's submitting to the human authority? Who's doing that to you? Yes, you're submitting yourselves. And then you see the same thing in verse 18. Slaves, in reverent fear of God, do what? Submit yourselves to your masters. Okay, so that's what's going on here as well. I don't know why I had verse 23. I'm going to change that in case I ever have to do this again. It's 18, not 23. So these things are arranged according to rank. Just like in the military, the people underneath the authority rank themselves under that. And again, God is the one who's doing the ranking here. But this is a general principle that wives are to rank themselves or submit themselves under their husbands. Again, it's not a husband with a whip or demanding it. It's something the wife does. Any questions on that? All right, question 5. How valuable is this submission in marriage according to verses 1 and 2?
Husbands could see it.
Okay, so aside from the fact that God commands it, and that's always a blessing when we obey God, as Robin just pointed out, there is a redemptive quality to this act of submission. Especially that's the case when a wife, and Peter's talking about this here, when the wife is married to an unbeliever. I would tell you, though, I think I would add that it's also valuable when the husband doesn't have the full commitment to the Lord that the wife might have. Her willingness to submit in that case also becomes a valuable thing. In both cases, believing wives are the ones who have this burden on their hearts. Probably the greatest burden a wife could have, especially if her husband's not a believer, is that he's not saved and wanting him to be. Or to have him fully commit to the Lord like she has. And so they want to win their husbands for the Lord. They want them to come to Christ, and they want them to have them fully committed to Christ. And at the same time, the wives may not know exactly what's the best way for me to go about that. What's the best way for me to bring my husband to Christ? And Peter's underlying message here is, don't nag him about it. Don't constantly argue religion with him. Don't take a position of dominance or of a teacher here. Because even if you're right, and you probably are most of the time, you can put your husband on the defensive. And so Peter says the more important and effective method for bringing your husband to Christ is having a submissive spirit. And accompanied by respectful and pure conduct that he's going to talk about in just a few minutes. And in that way, what Peter say? Your husband can be won how?
By the conduct of their wives.
Right, and there's another expression, there's a negative expression. Without a word. Without a word. That doesn't mean that there's never any conversation about Christ, that there's never any discussion about him. It just means that the words that we're using, which would be words of argument or badgering or coercion, you can win your husband without any of that, without taking up the battle. But rather by the purity and reverence of your life. And the reason for that is because the husband, it says here, in verse 2, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives, they're witnessing that. They're witnessing, observing that. And again, it's not just when they see. You know, I can see somebody walk by the foyer out there and I just see him. It's completely different to observe because you're focused on that. You're looking at that. And that's what's being talked about here. This unbelieving or uncommitted husband is seeing the wife's reverence for God, her fear of God, how important that is. And in the moral part of her lives, she is chaste. Some translations say that. My translation says purity. When I say chaste, where does your mind go immediately? What part of the human life does it go to? The sexual part. And it's so much more than that. I think that limits the extent of the pure life that come to mind when you use that term. And listen, if you're a wife and your husband's not a believer and you're wondering, how can I win him for Christ? As you're reading this or hearing it, you're living there in the congregation and this letter is being read to you, and when you hear that your husbands can be won over without words by their behavior when they see your purity and reverence. How is a wife who has an unbelieving husband, what's going to be her reaction to hearing that? That's amazing. I didn't know it could be done that way. I thought I had to hound him. I thought I had to get up on Sunday mornings. Well, I guess you're not going to church again today. You know, just that kind of niggling, nagging, pricking kind of an attitude. And I think that they would have taken that as just a ray of hope that I can bring my husband to the Lord in a way completely different than I thought it could be done. And I also can imagine wives in that situation thinking, I can do that. I may not be able to teach him everything he needs to know, but I can do that.
Dan?
Yes.
Question.
Oh, yes.
It's the difference between passive ministry and aggressive
Right.
ministry.
Right.
Now, assertive ministry is just saying, I'm going to church this morning.
Right.
Aggressive is, I guess you're not going again.
Right.
And passive is quietly getting ready.
Right. Right. And going, just like you do every week. Yeah.
And I have an unbelieving daughter that I live with. And I'm living this day by
Yeah.
day. My prayer is that someday she'll get over being angry at God.
Right.
But I don't know when that's going to happen, and that's
Right.
up to God.
Right.
But I'm going to treat her gently and kindly, even when she's spewing profanity.
Right. Right.
That takes a whole lot of prayer.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, and it takes a lot of faith too, because God said it can work. It's not guaranteeing it, but it can work this way. Yes, Jonathan.
I mean, I'm reminded of Galatians 6:1, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness.
Right.
That's use yourself be tempted.
Right.
And it's so easy to see somebody who's doing something wrong, who should know better, and to tell them how much they should know better.
Right.
And to not let that go until they realize that they should know
Right.
better.
Right.
Instead of showing them love,
Right.
and coming alongside them and hoping that
Right.
they find the changes
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to services this morning. I wish you would go with me. I sure hope you don't die while I'm gone because you know where you're going to go. You know, I mean, it's that kind of, you can be passive aggressive too. So, Josh?
Yeah, my mom and dad, before they were Christians, they were Catholic. So when they first moved to the States, my mom was very devout and would want to go to Mass every Sunday morning. And my dad made it very clear Sunday morning, Sundays start with the Mass and I sleep in that day. And so she knew that that was valuable to him. So quietly would leave and take the bus to downtown Seattle and go to Mass. And then he felt guilty when he'd wake up. And he said that stuck with him when they got converted.
Right.
As an example, every Sunday morning, like her just being, it actually made him nervous because when he started doing Bible studies with somebody he worked with, that, and it was in his mind, I didn't wake up to even give my wife a ride
Right.
to church, so why I have to quietly do this Bible study so that she doesn't get mad at me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. Any other comments on that? Yes, David.
I just on the part of my example, we introduce people to God without really having
Right.
taught. It should be a lesson to everybody.
Right.
It's still important the principles God sets before you.
Right.
That's just as treat all people correctly, no matter what. And eventually, they're open.
Right. Yeah, it depends on that other person's heart, but yeah, if it's a good heart, honest heart, then things have a good possibility of happening. And I'll talk a little bit more along these lines in the sermon this morning.
Hey, Dan?
Yes.
A picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yes.
You don't have to describe that baptistry picture. If you live life
Right.
in Christ, they'll see the same thing.
Right. And they should see, as Paul said in Galatians, Christ living in us.
Yeah.
So that's the picture that they ought to see. Okay, question 6. Excuse me. What makes a truly beautiful wife? In verses 3 and 4, which says, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry and fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is great worth in God's sight. And so what makes a wife truly beautiful?
Her actions, her way of saying things.
Okay, so her inner beauty.
Yes.
Yes. And keep in mind here that Peter's focus in this section is about winning unbelieving husbands. I mean, you could almost make that application in the master servant, that you're trying to win an unbelieving master. You're trying to show him what it is. But obviously this also applies to wives of believing husbands. On the negative side here, he says the beauty is not what? Outward. It's not outward. It's not talking about your external beauty. He's not wanting you to worry about that or focus on that. It's not what your hairstyle should be. It's not what jewelry you choose. It's not the fancy clothing that you wear. And listen, and it's unfortunate, but we have to say this, but Peter's not criticizing the wearing of these things, of doing your hair up and wearing jewelry or fine clothing. And we know he's not forbidding that because of the last one. The last thing he says don't do. And your translations, in the New King James, Randy, is there anything in there that's italicized? In verse 3?
Yes.
What
Say,
it,
do not let your beauty be the outward adorning is italicized.
okay,
Of arranging of the hair, of wearing gold, or of putting on, and then italics fine
okay.
apparel.
See, there's that's the key. The last thing that's italicized, the reason I go to New King James, because they're very good about saying, okay, this is a word we're putting in there. to help you understand it, but it's not in the Greek. And the last one that was there was fine clothing. Okay, mine says fine clothing. Literally, it says, don't let your outward beauty be seen in putting on clothes. Okay, so we've added some words to there. And obviously, Peter's not suggesting that Christian women should walk around naked. I just want you to see my inner beauty, so I've taken off everything else. No, that's not going to work. And what, who has a New American Standard Bible? Okay, read that.
Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or putting on dresses.
Okay, merely. Merely is the key word there that it's using to help us understand that.
This is in italics also.
Yes, yeah, and it should be. And so it's not merely braiding your hair. It's not merely wearing gold jewelry. It's not merely wearing the clothing that you have. And I think that's why they add this special fine kind of clothing. He's not saying here that a wife shouldn't take care of herself. Not saying that a wife here should not try to look her best for her husband. But that shouldn't be the main focus. Listen, God made men the way He made them, and men are attracted visually. That's part of being a man. But he's saying don't be vain about it. Don't make a display of yourself. It's not what's outside that's going to win your husband for the Lord. That's what he's saying. External beauty, listen, external beauty shouldn't even be the basis for choosing a wife. I remember when I was a little kid, and I think my dad told me this. He said, don't just look at the external look of your girlfriend or whoever you're thinking about marrying. He said, a really good thing to do is go home and see her mom. Then you'll see what she's going to look like later. I don't know that I did that. I don't think I did. Your mom was a good-looking woman anyway, so... But external beauty should not be a basis for choosing a wife. It certainly should not be a basis for keeping one. External beauty is not the same as submitting to him. So that's the negative side. On the positive side, a wife's true submission is going to be seen in the internal beauty of the heart. It's the hidden person within. It's the person they really are inside. It's their inner self. And that's going to include a person who is, according to verse 2, pure and reverent in behavior. That pure and reverent behavior needs to be consistent with their profession of their faith. And I didn't come up with this phrase, but I really like it. And that is, a wife should not be a hypocrite at home. The word for reverence here is our normal word phobos. And of course it speaks of fear or reverence, and depending on the context, but that would be it here. And it's not just for God. It's also their reverence for their husbands. And you see that in Paul mentions that, and he's a little bit clearer on it in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 33. He says, however, each of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. It's at the end of that discussion of husbands and wives in Ephesians 5. So this is a beauty that's unfading, unlike external beauty. And listen, that's true of all of us. I'm not nearly as handsome as I used to be. And if you knew me when I was younger, you would agree with that. This beauty is unfading because it's a quiet and gentle spirit. This is a permanent accessory that that women are to have, and men ought to have those permanent accessories as well. And it's going to be seen in unselfishness. It's going to be seen in a submission that's not given grudgingly. It's going to be seen in the sweetness of a wife's attitude toward her husband. And listen, that's hard to define, but it's very easy, I think, to spot. Any questions on that? The beauty of a wife and where the true beauty is? Yes.
Just a comment noting the last part of verse 4, but it says that this gentle and quiet spirit is very precious in the sight of God.
Right.
And like you mentioned, we look a lot at the outward appearance, and we're seeing many examples that God looks at the heart.
Right.
And so this is just another example of what's important to God.
Right.
And that He sees that.
Right.
He sees our motives. He sees our hearts. And that's, I don't know, I think that's encouraging.
I think it is too.
It's also encouraging when you get down to the little tiny verse about husbands, that if they are being considerate and trying to be like God who looks at the heart,
Yeah.
that a husband, as their wife's outward beauty is fading as they get old, that they are still looking at the inward beauty and seeing that and not
Right.
making the wife feel bad that
Right.
her beauty's fading.
Right.
Also, don't you think a woman's spirit becomes, I don't know, more gentle because she takes care of children and she has that purpose in her life?
Yeah, I think that's possible. Listen, I think God wired women differently than men. They are naturally more nurturing and caring and sweet. And husbands are wired to protect and to provide and are given a different set of hormones and body types than women have. Yeah. We were created for a purpose, each of us. So, question 7. Let's not go into question 7, because I'll just have to go over it again next week. And I think we've had a good bit of things to talk about here before we get into verses 5 and 6 as the examples that are given. Did somebody say my name? No? Did somebody clear their throat? Because sometimes it sounds the same. Okay, so let's begin with question 7. We've still got another minute. Any comments or further questions about what we've looked at already today? Yes.
How do you know that Cindy and I changed a lot when we obeyed the gospel? And I was a guy that you wouldn't hang around with. But the patience she had, honed me, took all the sharp edges off, and made me into the man I am today because of God and His Word.
Yeah.
That's just what.
Oh, yeah. I've told Robin this before. You guys wouldn't like me the way I was before. I was prejudiced and arrogant and she gets the credit for making me who I am today. So, all right, and with that good lunch waiting for me now, we'll go on. I would ask you just to read this section again this week. Read those first 7 verses and just think about what Peter's saying, and especially try to focus on the fact that he's addressing women who are in almost what they would consider a losing situation, and the reason they're married to unbelieving husbands is mostly because they obeyed the gospel and their husbands didn't. A lot of them probably coming out of pagan situations or even a Jewish situation, and the wives have come to faith and the husbands haven't, and her desire is for him to follow her. And it's really, if you keep that focus, it just kind of opens things up a little bit more, I think. All right, thank you very much.